Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag from the Heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine on ESPN Radio 1230. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Well, John, we have entered the official sports season of the fall, and with that, on this show, we're going to kick off having coaches in for as many days, as many Mondays as we possibly can over the next couple of weeks. And we're starting it off today with Coach Ken Mahung with the Glasgow Scotties soccer team. In a little while, after Coach Mahung gets tired of talking to us, then Scott Zettlemoyer, the girls coach at Glasgow, is going to join us. And I think we have Amanda Lockhart. She's going to come in next week with Lawrence Niken, whatever you want to call him.
Niken.
Yeah, whatever they call him around here. And with the Barron County girls soccer, we're still trying to get volleyball coaches and other soccer coaches in, but let's kick this off with Coach Mahung. Coach Mahung, thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yep. You are in your 5th season at Glasgow, is that correct?
That's correct.
He has to check with his wife, Laura, who she manages everything. As all good soccer teams, 6th season, as all good soccer coaches, they have somebody to take care of all the paperwork and whatnot. Is that right, Coach Mahung?
Absolutely right.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things that I think are pretty interesting about you, minus just the soccer. First of all, I actually met you before you were a soccer coach around here through your son, JR. He was in town working up some poems, and he was down at Vanderbilt at that time. And I think that was the influence on why you guys ended up in Glasgow. Is that correct?
Actually, we're already here.
Oh, okay.
But you mean for him being in?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you had family,
Most
so
definitely,
Glasgow's
yes.
a kind of a central location,
That's
right?
That's correct.
And so then I got to know you, and then you coached the Barron County girls for a year, and then you got the boys soccer job at Glasgow. Real quick, can you just kind of explain your experience as a coach before taking over at Glasgow, for those who have not met you before?
Sure. Well, I've coached now for over 25 years. I coached in Chicago. I also coached in my country in Belize.
Yep.
In Chicago, we had our own traveling club. Mm-hmm. And every year we got promoted until we got to the elite, which was they call it the gold level. A lot of our kids got recruited for ODP as well. That's the ODP program.
That's an Olympic developmental program,
That's
right?
correct.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so I coach at, normally what's interesting is all the places I've coached are small schools. They're small organizations. But they always did well.
Yeah. And so you ended up with Laura said, your 6th season with Glasgow Boys. And when you took over the program, Glasgow's had some talent through the years, but it's not always had winning records or been overly successful. But you've had some pretty good runs. We were talking before you came on. You guys went to the All-A State tournament, beat Owensboro Catholic in the semi-state round, which is always a chore. 2 seasons ago, you guys won for the first time ever in the regional tournament, beat South Warren 1-0, gave Warren Central a fight. Warren Central is the best team in the region, one of the best teams in the state. I think they ended up state runner-up that year, or semifinal. And so, you've had some good success. What have you done to get this program to where it's competitive? I mean, because usually those teams over in Bowling Green just dominate us over here.
Right.
What have you done?
Well, one of the first things we noticed when we moved here to Glasgow was that we wanted to play soccer. Mm-hmm. And everywhere we went, we were told that people don't play soccer when it's cold.
Yeah.
And which was a shock to us because, of course, we live in Chicago. Yeah. And we'd have the snow plowed, and then we played soccer.
Right.
So what we started doing was we asked around, who could we talk to about just playing soccer? We were told to talk to the Latino individuals.
Yeah.
We couldn't find them.
Right.
So once my wife was the one that spoke to someone from Barron County. I guess it was more by accident because the house that we bought from an individual that had ties to Barron County. Mm-hmm. And my wife mentioned to her that I coached. So one day I heard they called and asked if I could help out the girls program. And while I was over there, one of the parents decided that we should start competing in Bowling Green And while we were on vacation, she signed up our team, a co-ed team, with Sky. And then she texted me, when it Cayman Islands, I think it was. And then she texted me and said, we're going to play the Sky League.
Yeah.
And when I got out there, I realized that the Bowling Green teams were playing all year round.
Right.
And I said, well, this makes sense. This is what we do in Chicago. So we came back to Glasgow and decided, okay, starting now, we're going to make sure that our kids play all year round. And that's the only way we could catch up with Bowling Green. It took us some time, but we're finally getting close.
Yeah. John?
Yeah, I mean, that's the you can't get better if you don't play. And that's the gold standard in this area. Soccer in Bowling Green is really good. I mean, Bowling Green and South Greenwood have been dominant in this region. Then you threw Warren Central in, and what got my attention was a couple years ago that coach in Glasgow has won this district 5 straight years, which is a great accomplishment. What got my attention is when they won that first round in Bowling Green, and how competitive they were against Warren Central and so forth. Because that just kind of showed me or told me how much better that Glasgow was getting, and the area around here was becoming much more competitive.
Yeah. Now, your team, you went 14-5 last year, lost in the, I guess semifinals technically of the region, to Bowling Green. Or do you feel like the team that you have coming back this year is one that can get back to where you guys might be able to win a first-round region game, or how close are you to that, you think?
I feel we can. Last year, I wasn't surprised with the result we had last year, because
you had lost a lot of talent from the year before.
Yes. Not only that, but our best players were freshmen.
Right.
And they'd never played at such a high level and get used to the physical aspects of the game. We had hard-working seniors, but they knew and we knew that as far as the talent went, it wasn't anywhere near the Bowling Green teams.
Right.
So they gave it a good fight, but I wasn't surprised with the result. Our freshmen and our sophomores that are returning, they've had that 1-year experience. So we expect to go a whole lot farther. Definitely expect a much better season.
Yeah.
Can you tell, you've been practicing officially, got back together at the dead period for, where are you going on, about 4 or 5 days, I guess. Have you been happy with the improvement that you've seen in some of the kids that are back from last year, from where they were at the end of I guess October of last year to where they are now? Can you see improvement?
Most definitely. And my assistant coaches and myself, we talked to the kids about that just before dead period. We had 2-a-days going before dead period. Now we do that. And after the 2-a-days, we just saw wonderful improvements. And so we had a talk with them before dead period. Let's say, like, guys, you've come a long way. And it's continued after that period.
That's great.
So we're quite excited.
Because
we're working on our defense, but we're quite excited.
Well, you mentioned your defense. You have Alex Elizalde coming back, and I mean, he's a 4-year starter on defense and quite a force, really. Who are some people that you've worked in around him?
Well, see, it's interesting you'd mention his name, because right now his spot is not even safe.
Yeah.
And he knows that. We have our son, who's an 8th grader, coming as a freshman, just surprised us. All of a sudden, he stepped it up. He's always been a goalkeeper. And now we're looking at him as a potential center back. We also have Eli Travis, who we've always said, the way we train the muscles. We call it muscle memory. We don't know when the muscle memory kicks in, but when it does, it's just amazing. And we believe that for our son, Bradford, and Eli, and some of the other kids, muscle memory has just kicked in.
Yeah.
And they are giving Alex a fight. So we're not sure who will start as center back.
Right.
They're fighting for it right now, which is a good thing. It's a good thing for us.
Competition is great.
Yes.
I mean, that's you've arrived as a program when you have competitive spots at key positions.
That's correct.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your schedule. you said your full schedule is online. You said that before we got started. You guys get to play in the All A again this year.
Yes.
That's something that I would say you guys take a little pride in. Glasgow had to sit out for a few years because
Yes.
its school population was too large to compete in All A. And as we mentioned, I mean, the region itself isn't that tough sometimes just because you got some young programs, new programs in the region. But if you get out of the region, you face a different level of competition.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your schedule other than that All A. Have you tried to beef up your schedule in anticipation of these younger guys growing up?
Yes. Well, I believe that the reason why our program has improved is because every year we've gotten tougher competition.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I always tell a story. My first season taking over the Glasgow program, there were probably 4 games that were scheduled, and I had to fill the rest of the schedule.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know any of the coaches, so I started calling around, and their response to me was, "Well, Coach, your program is not very competitive, and sorry to tell you, but we don't want to play you."
Yeah.
And I heard that so many times. And there are some programs that at that time, I didn't realize it, but they were weaker programs. They were willing to play us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we filled our schedule.
Right.
Well, since then, we've had a lot of schools that used to play us that after we played them once, they said, "We don't want to play you anymore." But then we have the stronger programs that contacted us and said, "We want to add you to our schedule."
Yeah.
So we're playing teams like Southwestern.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're playing teams like Greenwood.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're playing Warren Central, of course.
Mhm.
Every year we play them. We have scrimmages against Taylor County.
They've been good lately.
Yeah, they have.
Exactly.
Yes, they have.
And also against, they said Bowling Green.
Mhm.
We have scrimmage against them.
Yeah.
And we have some other tough opponents during the season. So we've made sure, and actually we also had scheduled a game against Orangeburg Catholic, not knowing
You may face
that
them.
we're exactly.
Yeah.
So that was for the first week in October.
Mhm.
So that has to be changed if we qualify and we wind up playing each other.
Right.
We already agreed that we'll play that game in September, and then the game in October will be canceled.
Right. Got you.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned I guess another thing you kind of ran into was learning which programs were the top programs in
That's
the area.
correct.
Trying to work out your schedules when you first took
correct.
over the program.
Yes.
Have you been impressed since you've been here? Has the play of soccer improved that you've seen in the area since you've been back?
With certain programs.
Certain program.
Yes, and I see that, for example, with South Warren,
Yes.
Warren Central.
Mm-hmm.
They've gone from playing what we would call, I say we because my philosophy is total football. And so when we describe something, we describe compared to total football. And a lot of coaches around here coach British football because it's influenced by the British coaches. The whole country is. But I've seen Warren Central, I've seen South Warren switch to total football a few years ago, and their game is just different. You know, even Greenwood now is doing the same thing. So you can tell the programs that are becoming stronger because they've changed their approach and their style to the game.
Not to get too deep into the weeds, but when you say total football, what do you mean? Can you give like a back of the postcard kind of definition of what that is?
Sure. I'll do a comparison, which I think will make it easier.
Okay.
In British football, I grew up playing British football because in Belize we're British.
Yeah.
So that's what we learned. And what they do is, if you're a defender, you are a defender. Yeah, you try to move from there, they'll tell you better get back, and
Right.
coach will be screaming at you.
Right.
Not the next thing is that you run set plays. They'll tell you, okay, when the ball goes here, you go over here, and you have to memorize things.
Yeah.
Total football, we train the players to play every position.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
It's almost positionless.
exactly. So
Right.
the game becomes very fluid. One moment, you have one individual. Do you remember that one? The kids still talk about this. When Augie, your son, played with us, he was a defender, right? But he scored when we were in Grayson County almost from midfield.
Yeah.
Well, how could he have the confidence to do that? Because he knew that the way we played, everybody's expected to score.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have designated goal scorers. everybody's expected to score.
Yeah.
And then we don't have to say, okay, we don't memorize a play. Everything is situational. You get to the point where you read the game and you make that decision. We don't make the decision for you as a coach.
And you clearly, to play that way, all your players have to be skilled.
That's correct.
They got to be able to pass and
That's correct.
and read where to pass. Both be apt with both feet as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've kind of described it to basketball people as like if you ran a total motion offense in basketball.
It's like Golden
without
State.
Without a center, really.
Yeah, Golden State is positionless in
Yeah.
basketball. That's
And,
correct.
I mean, that's the way I kind of explain it to people sometimes. And otherwise, you're running like everything's screen and roll. So real quick, tell us about we talked about your defense. Who's playing goalie for you? I take it real quick, based on your answer about Alex, that actually every position is challengeable
Right now.
Yeah, but I would say you do have some people coming into the season who probably performed, and you're expecting them to hopefully hold on to their position, because if they don't, either somebody's gotten real good or they slacked up.
That's correct.
So coming in, who are you looking at, like at goalie?
Our goalie, we have three possibilities. And you'll also find this interesting. Our goalie, the expected starting, just like Alex, one of our expected center backs.
Yeah.
Starting center backs. Well, for our expected starting goalkeeper is Kalen Roshan, and he's a senior. However, he's being challenged by Eli, who I mentioned earlier, for center back, who he's going to be a junior, as well as our son, Bradford, who is a freshman.
Yeah.
So I just told them, we just had this conversation this morning. I said, guys, these starting positions are wide open. You guys, everybody have to step it up. We just had it this morning.
What about your midfielders? What are you looking at there?
Midfielders are more set. It's not as wide open as the other positions.
Yeah.
Now, depending on what formation we play, I'm still deciding that.
Right.
I have to see when we go to Bluegrass. That's what we're testing.
Yeah.
To see what formations the team is more comfortable with. But we have Jackson Bauer, who is our playmaker for sure. He's been trained for that. We're preparing him for that, and he's working really hard. We have Yahir, who has always been trained to be a playmaker as well. So we literally have two very good playmakers in the midfield area. We have Martin, who's going to be, and those two guys, Jackson is just going to be a sophomore.
Right.
Yahir is going to be a junior.
Yeah.
On the senior side, we have Martinez, who has always been a solid player for us. So we have him there. And then we
Has he gotten any taller?
He actually got taller.
Good.
He's about 5'7". He's actually gotten taller.
Good.
And then we have Johnny Cipriano, and he can play there or left back. We have Andres, who is going to be a sophomore, and he can play midfield or left back as well. So a lot of them can, because it's total football, we can play them in these different positions.
Yeah.
We have Miguel Pascual, who's going to be a junior. And then on our forward line, we have Seth Medford. He's grown taller. That's exciting. We have the new kid, Hudson Davis. Pretty decent player, and he's picking up our system very quickly.
Yeah.
And then we have Grant Gatlin. Yeah. with his speed.
Right.
I think that they're going to terrorize. I look forward to watching those three go at a back three or back four. I think they're going to terrorize that defense, because they're pretty good.
You mentioned the Bluegrass games. That's coming up. That's a good test. You get to face some good competition in that. What is that, next weekend?
Next
you guys
weekend.
go up there in Lexington, I guess, again?
Yes.
And then when do you mentioned two scrimmages. When is your first scrimmage?
Our first scrimmage is that Tuesday when we come back.
Okay.
So we play that Sunday.
So basically 2 weeks from tomorrow.
That's correct. And that's at, I think it's Bowling Green.
Yeah.
Right? I think Bowling Green. My wife's looking it up for us.
But you have that, you scrimmage Bowling Green, and
Yes.
then your regular season gets started. Your first game's on the 15th of August.
correct.
Is that correct? Yeah.
And we play Barron County, at Barron County.
Okay, so you
Is
start
our
right
first
off as district game, huh?
That's correct.
Is there anything else you can kind of think of that you would like to mention about your team or your program before you get out of here?
Well, I want to thank the parents. Think think about it. Here we are running practice 6 o'clock in the morning, and a lot of them have work.
Right.
But they find a way to get their kids out there. I know it's a challenge for them, but they have been extremely supportive, for everything that we do, and I appreciate that. The administration, they, from the superintendent, the principal, our athletic director, the teachers, they've really helped us a lot. Making sure the kids do what they're supposed to do on the academic side. Without that type of support, and of course my assistant coaches, they help a lot. Because we go almost all year round, and they don't get paid for that. But they're there because they want to help our kids develop.
Yeah.
So, and then of course my wife, who's here, she runs the whole show. You know that. So I have to make sure that people are aware of that she does the whole thing for us. But without that type of support, this would not happen.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of, when I say, let me say we, because I know that the superintendent, the principal, everybody, we're very proud of our kids. Someone mentioned that since I took over the program, we have never gotten a red card.
Is that right?
Never gotten a red card at all.
I think my son tried real hard at North Bullitt to get one, though.
But we didn't get it.
No, we didn't.
And the amount of yellow cards that we get are very minimal.
Yeah.
For the entire season. So it shows you how disciplined our kids are. And we're very proud of them for that. Very proud.
Well, Coach Mahung, I want to thank you for coming in here, and good luck to you guys this year. I'll be keeping track because it's always a lot of fun.
Thank you.
This is Brown Sports Bag, brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
Well, John, it was reported, I think Friday, that Warren East filled its girls basketball position with Jenny Jones Neville. And she played for Blaine Embry in the mid-'90s and was a good player, apparently.
Yes, she was.
I'm sure you got to see a lot of her.
Coached against her. That's exactly right. Jenny was I just remember Jenny Jones. She was a point guard.
Yeah.
Played some, too. But she was I think she was on I'm pretty sure she was on the 97 team that we knocked. We defeated Warren East in the finals of the region. They were number one in the state that time. They had LaVonda Johnson as well. And then the next year they ended up coming back and winning the region the next year. We didn't play them, but they won the region. She was a really, really good guard. I think played at Lindsey Wilson as well.
I was curious because one of the things I was looking at, Orlando Hayden was the coach the last 2 years, and the program seemed to be headed in the right direction. I mean, you've mentioned this more than once. The key part of getting that program turned around was getting some of the players from other sports, especially softball, to come play basketball. They had a good 8th grader coming up. I think Lucy Patterson is a young player. She played basketball last year and is an outstanding softball player that stands out to me. And so it looked like he had gotten the ball rolling in that direction, but then he was not brought back as a coach. I think he kind of made it obvious it wasn't his choice, some reporting.
I don't think that's...
I'm not speaking out of turn.
No, that's not a secret.
And so they went 32-30 the last 2 seasons, but they had won 37 total games, I think, in the prior 8 seasons is what I'd seen reported. But the thing is, she may be an outstanding coach. This is her first head coaching job. She's been, I think, at the middle school maybe last year.
She's been in middle school. She's made a couple of stints there.
Yeah.
She's been there the last couple of years. I know that.
And maybe that's part of the key is that
I think she'll be a good coach. Now, I don't have anything to go by that other than just my memory that she was a smart player when she played.
Yeah.
She played for a tremendous coach in Blaine Embry, and I just got a funny feeling that she will relate really well to him, especially coaching them in middle school. I think it's a good hire for her, and I like Jenny, and I wish her the best. But Warren East is one of the traditional girls' powers in the region, and like a lot of schools, they've it never lasts forever. and there's changes, and now they've kind of moved into their everybody knows them now as a softball power,
right?
And they start off being a basketball power, to be honest with you, and they do run their share of good athletes through there, and they've been good in girls' sports. They've been good in girls' cross country. Obviously, they've been good in girls' softball. So they do have players there. It's getting them out, and it seemed like Coach Hayden had gotten them out, but getting them out, putting you just need that one or two real good guards.
Yeah.
And then you if you can get that guard that can really play, and I think that's what they've missed a little bit. They've been fairly athletic, but they have not had a dominant, not even a real quality guard, and that's probably that's their key. If you got a guard in this region, you got a shot to be really good. If you don't, you won't.
Yeah, in recent years, their best players have been inside players.
Right.
And back to your point about if you don't have a guard, especially in the 14th district, because Bowling Green's going to press you, South Warren's probably going to press you if you don't have a guard. Everyone's probably going in that direction as soon as they see you don't have a primary ball handler.
Right, and there's a lot of teams we've talked about in this region the last couple of years that just doesn't have the guards.
Right.
And the guards, you have to have them. That's the skill position.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the if you don't have one, you don't have a chance.
And also to the coaching point of her being a former point guard / two guard, we've had a couple of your former players in here who were guards.
Yes.
TJ Coffey, Piper Lindsay.
That's correct.
And it does seem like former guards as coaches translate well to coaches.
It seems like that at all levels.
Yeah.
And it's just because the decisions that you have to make oftentimes from the guard position. You affect so many other people and so forth. And post players will tell you the same thing. Real good post players also tell you that their best friends are the guards.
Because somebody's got to get them the ball.
That's exactly right.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, though, how do you think this hire affects the balance of power in the 4th region or anything of that nature?
Well, it's not going to affect Bowling Green.
No.
I mean, Bowling Green's loaded, and Bowling Green will be the number 1 team in the region.
Yeah.
I think Barron's number 2, especially after this summer. Barron, I think, proved to a lot of people that they're not going to drop off a lot.
Yeah.
Because they've got guards.
Yeah.
They may have the best guard in the region coming back.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Bertram. South Warren, I was impressed with South Warren in the region when I saw them. They lost a good guard.
Yes.
But I still think South Warren, Warren East will probably be the 3rd best team in the region. I'm sorry, in their district.
Yeah.
Can Jenny get them to the point where they got a legitimate shot to knock off a South Warren? That would be the question.
I would say that would be the mark, definitely, because Natalie Pierce was an outstanding guard, and they did not. We saw kind of in the regional tournament they had other good players.
They did
not really have another guard to kind of step in and take the load off of Natalie Pierce, and as we saw during the course of the region, and so that's going to be the question: do they have anybody developed?
South Warren, that's the question. And they've got enough kids there, and they've already, they seem to be a program that they're going to be there for a long time.
Yeah.
And in fact, the only program South Warren produces that's not produced is the boys.
Right.
And now Blaine Embry's got the boys, so
we'll see how long that takes.
Yeah, I think they will turn that around too. You can never discount South Warren in any sport anymore.
No, that's right.
They've got the facilities, the finances, and they got enough athletes where South Warren will be a factor in every single sport.
One critical point also about South Warren is that the census estimates that came out, I think, about a couple of months ago, Warren County is the fastest growing county in the state right now.
Yes, and it's growing toward
south.
It goes that way, and it's also growing toward Scottsville Road that way too. That place is loaded, which is Greenwood.
Yeah. So you talk about you never know what's going to move in that area just because there's so many people moving into the area. You could wake up one morning and have, hey, we didn't have a guard, and now we've got 2 good ones.
That's correct, and you have Western.
Yeah.
And every time Western hires a coach or an assistant coach or a swim coach or a track coach,
right.
Those people generally have families and they have children.
Yeah.
And they're so you never know, and that's the benefit of being in Bowling Green.
Yep. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
Well, John, Scott Zettlemoyer, Glasgow's girls soccer coach, is making his way in. Should be in here in just a minute. Real quick, and we're going to talk about this a little more after he's gone, but real quick, the football got started with some 7-on-7 last week and played a little bit over at Warren East High School. I'm guessing that doing the little 7-on-7 stuff is kind of a good way to get the players to come out and run around and in 100 and some odd degree heat with some humidity without all of the grind and gruel that goes along with football usually. What do you think?
I assume I'm sure it's good for the timing with receivers and quarterbacks, but it's not a lot of resemblance between 7-on-7 without pads and the real game.
Oh yeah.
And so I don't put a lot of stock on who wins 7-on-7 games.
Yeah, it's equivalent.
Especially,
its equivalent is basically 21 in basketball where everybody's playing together, that kind of
3-on-3 half court.
Yeah,
maybe.
Well, Scott has made his way in. Thank you for joining us, Scott. He is in his second year as the girls soccer coach at Glasgow High School, former Glasgow Scotty player, and took over the program after Sean Goldburn stepped down a couple of years ago. And Scott, why don't you tell us a little bit about your first year? What was that experience like for you?
It was kind of surreal. As I've been an assistant for about 4 or 5 years at different places, and it was just a kind of cool experience getting to actually be in control and be able to decide what happens and see how the girls react and see how the girls play. So yeah, it was kind of a surreal moment and surreal season, in my opinion.
Were there some things that you did that you, when you first took over, that you felt like set a tone for how the season was going to go?
I kind of just showed up and saw how the girls were reacting, and I just told them I don't take any slacking. Yeah, slacking or nonsense, and I want their best effort at every practice, and that's how we got better, and that's how we ended up having a pretty decent season last year.
How did you, when you first took over that team, because basically Glasgow had a 2-year run. They had a huge senior class, and then they had some leftover juniors who were pretty good. But you basically took over what amounted to a brand new team, because I'm guessing the players that you had left over had spent a lot of time playing behind other people.
Yeah, pretty much. The first year, Sean's last year, I was the assistant, and we had going into that season, we only had 2 sophomores. Mm-hmm. So we had to pretty much bring in a whole new class, or else the program was gonna die.
Right.
So we brought in about 6 or 7 more sophomores, and those girls really grew and took the JV program over that year. And then this past year, they just decided that they didn't want to be a losing team anymore. They wanted to try and take things to another level, and they all just stepped up tremendously. And we had a lot of youth come up. Freshmen and sophomores, a couple girls came back to the team, and that really helped mold the thing and turned it into a pretty good season.
Now you guys ended up, what was it, 11-10? I think was the actual record. But,
yes.
But then you also won a regional game, beat Franklin Simpson on penalty kicks.
Yeah,
that must have been pretty emotional.
It was kind of a crazy game because. Our goalie had only been playing for 2 years. Her name's Paige Bird. She was nervous, and in all honesty, probably shouldn't have went to penalty kicks, but it ended up going to penalty kicks, and we ended up taking it that far and getting a win out of it, I guess.
John?
This is a off question, but I'll throw it out there to you anyway. The Women's World Cup last week. It's been the last couple weeks. Did your kids watch it, or are they? You think that serves as a motivator for some of them and so forth? Because I know I watched every game and I loved it personally.
I agree. We watched the first knockout game together. It was right before dead period, so we all got together. We went over to one of the girls' houses and We sat down, talked about the game, discussed what they played, which was surprising because the Spain game was the worst game the USA played.
That's true.
But we sat down, we watched that game, we discussed how they play and their tactics and the way that the style that they play, and we've tried and take that mold and bring it over to our program and try and use it as a guide to try and make us a better team this season.
Now you're coaching a girls' sport. Is something like that Women's World Cup empowering for your players in any way?
In all honesty, I think it is, just because, one, for these girls that grow up in America, to see an American team go and actually win something like this, they saw it when they were little, but to see it now that they're older and they can actually understand what it means, I think it's a very empowering thing. I feel like a lot of them have a lot of energy now, and coming out of dead period, they're playing really strong in practices, and I think they're really excited for this year as well.
Do you guys go and play in the Bluegrass games?
No, we're not playing in the Bluegrass games this year, just because of funding. We couldn't get the funding together real late, and we were thinking about it, but we just decided not to. Let us focus on ourselves and get better that way.
What kind of practice schedule do you run?
Right now, today we just started our first day of two-a-days. We run 5:30 to 7 in the morning, and then 6 to 8 at night.
Yeah.
Do it that early so I have time to get to work, and so
It's cooler.
So it's a little cooler as well. Yeah, we run two-a-days for probably about another week, 2 weeks, and see how that goes. If I'm not happy, then we'll run in another week and see how that goes. And or at least that's what I tell them.
Now, I didn't see that your full schedule was online. What is it? Your schedule look like? Well, I'm glad you brought it with you.
Yeah.
Usually I try to print these things out.
I mean, we're playing pretty much the same thing, same teams that we usually play. We're not playing Bowling Green or Greenwood this year because of us dropping back into Class A. We had to fill those slots.
Yeah.
We're playing Taylor County for the first time in a couple years. Traditionally, they're a pretty good.
They are. They're a good
girls program. We play them in our second game of the season. We'll also be playing Pulaski County near the end of the year before we play against Barron and in our home game.
Who do you open up with?
We open up against Clinton County at home.
Okay. That's a district game.
Yeah. So getting straight into the district.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I saw where I think you guys had 6 seniors last year, but it looked like you returned the bulk of what your offense was last year.
Yeah, we're going to bring back our top 3 goal scorers, Aubrey Phillips, Donna Miranda, and Emma Watson. We're bringing those 3 back. We're bringing back our whole back line. We're pretty much bringing back the entire core of our team. We'll have 7 seniors and 12 juniors this year.
Yeah.
And then I have an issue now again, basically back to where I was when I was an assistant. I don't have enough young girls, so I'm trying to recruit
for JV and
trying to recruit and bring in some younger girls from the middle school and that play softball when they were in middle school, trying to see if they'll come over and play some soccer during the fall now.
Gotcha. John?
How do you? I assume that the region's fairly typical. It's going to run through the Bowling Green schools.
Pretty much.
Is that Greenwood, Bowling Green?
Pretty much Greenwood and Bowling Green. They both have like 2 star players. I feel like you can't talk about the 4th Region Soccer and not bring up Anna Haddock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She signed with was it
Auburn?
Auburn. Yeah.
She signed with Auburn, and
Very
then
impressive player.
There's a girl
Yes,
there's a girl at Bowling Green who also has signed with Ole Miss or committed to Ole Miss. I don't know if she's actually signed yet. But they're both they're the powerhouses, and to not say that they're the powerhouses is kind of ignorant of myself. But there's no doubt in my mind that we could have held them to 1 goal at halftime last in the region tournament, and 2 mistakes gave up 2 more extra goals, and that's what led to our overall demise at the end of the time. I feel that with the team that we have coming back and the way that the region is shaping up, I feel like that there's no reason that we couldn't be top 4, top 3 in the region this season.
Back to your schedule real quick. So you mentioned the All-A. You guys are back in that this year.
Yes, sir.
How does that kind of look, the All-A region part?
We'll have to go through Monroe County first, then Russellville, and
Todd
then
Central.
Todd Central or Clinton.
Yep.
And
I like your chances.
I'm kind of on the plus side of that. I think that we have a good chance at it.
Then you run into Owensboro Catholic.
Then we run into Owensboro Catholic. And if you don't know about Owensboro Catholic, they took Greenwood to penalties last year in the state tournament and then lost in penalty kicks.
I mean, they're comparable year in, year out to Bowling Green, Greenwood. They're
Pretty
that
much.
level, right?
Yeah.
So the way I view it is, we're not playing Bowling Green or Greenwood this year, but if we can get to Owensboro Catholic, then we can see where we're actually are at.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that if we can get to Owensboro Catholic and play a very substantial game and give them a run for their money and maybe get a win and go to Class A, then I've no doubt in my mind why we shouldn't win Class A if we can beat Owensboro Catholic.
Right. You mentioned your back line is back. Who are some of the players on the back line?
Our main girl on the back line, she's our. We run things a little different than anybody else. We tend to run a 3-back, but occasionally we'll run a 4-back. Carrie Vaught is our girl in the back. She'll be a junior this year. She pretty much decided to wake up and actually play this spring, and she's been playing phenomenal during the spring and playing phenomenal during this summer. So I'm really excited to see how she'll take another step up this season.
Is that Mike's daughter?
Yes.
So is she like Sarah Kate? You look at her and you think, well, she can't be that fast, but then she like blows by you with the ball?
No, not really. She's very quick anyways.
Yeah.
And she's very intelligent on the ball, and she knows how to play the ball and knows how to defend. And that was the issue last year, was teaching her when to go and when not to go into tackles, that is. And she's learning that, and now she understands it, and she's been playing phenomenal.
What about in the goal?
That's Paige Bird. In my opinion, and I'm going to get some flack from anybody else in the region if they listen to this, but in my opinion, she's the best she'll be the best goalkeeper in the region.
Well,
next
they're
year.
listening. They're listening everywhere we got, right?
I feel like she can be the best goalkeeper in the region next year.
I'll make sure I put that in the header on the podcast.
Sounds great to me.
That's fair.
She needs all the publicity she can get, because that's kind of the one thing that struggles with, is that when they're doing these all region teams, none of these girls from non-Bowling Green schools really get recognition for it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I think she had the most shutouts in the region last year, and she deserves to get a little bit more recognition for it. And that also goes along with our back line playing as good as they did last year.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned your top 3 goal scorers. I'm guessing you got some other midfielders or forwards that you're looking at possibly playing time?
Yeah, we're switching things around a little bit. We're going to move some girls around from the back line up to the midfield, and from the midfield up to the forwards role. We obviously have Aubrey, Dinah, and Emma, and then we also have Autumn Copus. She plays really well on the wing. Might give her some minutes up top. We also have Kirsten Crow, a.k.a. Kiki. She'll be a sophomore this year, and she plays really well. She'll probably play a little bit on the wing, some maybe in the holding mid. Another girl I expect to take a huge step forward this year would be 2 of them, actually, Hayden Botts and Daniela Ramirez. I feel like those 2 are both going to take huge steps this season and hopefully really set the pace for our midfield this season.
What kind of setups do you guys run? What kind of formations?
It kind of varies.
Prefer, I should say.
It kind of varies. We'll do anything from a 3-5-2, which is 3 midfielders, 3 defenders, 5 midfielders, and 2 forwards.
Yeah.
And then we also run an offset that it's a 3-2-4-1. It just overloads the midfield and it allows us to really control the middle on a bigger field, like a turf field or something like that. We tend to run something like that.
Yeah. Do you like the idea of running SAG defense or that kind of stuff? Like if you're facing Owensboro Catholic, Bowling Green, Greenwood in the region?
In the region tournament last year, we packed it in a little bit. We ran a 5-4-1, 5 defenders. We ran 3 center backs and 2 outside backs. I don't like doing that. I prefer to go out there and try and punch somebody in the face before they can punch you.
Yeah.
but then you also got to recognize where you're at and where they were at. At the point where we were at last year, that was our way of trying to survive, and it ended up we made them play the whole game, and I feel like we're the reason they lost the regional championship.
Right. Took a notch, huh?
Yeah.
John, anything else?
Yeah, your first game you said was Clinton. Do you have any preseason games coming up, or
our first scrimmage and our only scrimmage as of right now is against Warren East, kind of like what we did last year. We'll play them at home on August 8th. I really like playing them. I'm good friends with their coach, and I like to play them to see where we set up immediately. It lets us know, okay, this is where we're at, and this is what we got to work on to get
because
better.
They're competitive, but they're not Bowling Green level, but they're still a good team. Yeah,
it'll be about like playing. I would say it's similar to like playing Barron County on a weekly basis. If you can get a game like that to where you know where your level is and you know where you're going to be, then it lets you set yourself up and figure out what you got to do to get better.
Speaking of Barron, they're the mark in the district that you guys are trying to get over. And they kind of did the same thing Glasgow did. They had a down period, but they went out and got players to come and play. New coach this year, so I'm guessing you're going to see some new things out of them. Otherwise, in your district, you guys are. I mean, you and Barron are there. Clinton and Monroe have had moments where they've been competitive, but they've always also kind of been the other teams in the district.
In all honesty, Monroe County, after the way that we played at Monroe County last year, they've stepped up phenomenally. I think I say this as it's still a large margin of victory, but we only won at Monroe County 6-0, and they played phenomenal. And I feel like with the coaches that they have, I feel like they're just going to continue to get better, and I could see them giving some trouble for us this year, in all honesty.
Yep. Well, Scott, I want to thank you for joining us. Good luck to you guys this year.
Thank you, sir.
Looking forward to seeing how the team plays and how your second year goes.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag, brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
Well, John, I want to thank Coach Mahung and Coach Zettlemoyer for coming in and talking to us about their soccer teams. Got me interested in the season. I'm sure lots of other people are interested to see how things go around there. And like I said, I know next week we're going to have Amanda Lockhart and Lawrence Niken in here talking about the Barron County girls. Still trying to get volleyball and other soccer coach in here, and then we'll work on getting the football coaches in. But real quick, and here in our last few minutes, did you watch Wimbledon over the weekend?
I did.
What do you think Novak Djokovic, or Joker as they call him, is he like the greatest tennis player ever?
It's hard to argue that he's not. I mean, I don't see him that way. I prefer Federer, but he's got a winning record against Federer.
Yeah, is he not the? I think he's the only professional that has a winning record.
No, Nadal does too.
That's right. Okay,
they both do. But the match was tremendous. I thought Federer outplayed him. And Federer's 37. There are very few 37-year-old tennis players that play at that level. And I think Djokovic is 32.
Yeah.
But, I think it's Djokovic's 15th or 16th mate. I mean, he's way up there, too.
Yeah.
And I think what makes Djokovic so good, he's good at all surfaces. I mean, grass, hard courts, he's probably the best. He's not – Federer just has a grace about him. He's just beautiful to watch.
Yeah.
And Djokovic doesn't play with that same grace. Now he gets everything back.
Right.
And he really doesn't have a weakness. But if you ask people, would you rather go watch Federer play or Djokovic play? I think most people are going to take Federer.
To some degree, maybe people have missed this, and I certainly would qualify as one of those people. But this is kind of a golden age of men's tennis.
3 of the top players of all time, and
yes.
Nadal, Federer, and Djokovic.
Yeah, I mean
they're playing in their 30s too, which
right.
never happened.
I mean, this is akin to the middle 80s when you had
Borg,
we talked about
Connors, McEnroe.
Yeah, I mean you had a string of really.
But these players didn't win as much as the 3 back then, Connors, McEnroe, and Borg, did not win near the amount that these 3 guys have won.
Yeah, and I think also interestingly enough.
Now they're not Americans.
No, none of them are. Which is probably why Americans haven't paid as close attention.
I think that's part of
They
it.
sometimes confuse Roger Federer with being an American.
Right. He's not.
But he's not. Yeah.
That's correct.
But
But they all seem to be good dudes, too.
yes.
No off-the-court problems or anything like that.
Yeah, their personalities also do not draw attention to them a whole lot.
Right. Now, Djokovic can be a little fiery.
Yeah.
But Federer is just class persona. And he had 2 match points in serving on his racket in the 5th set. He had 2 match points up 40-15.
Yeah.
And up 6-5 or whatever. And he could have put him away, and he did not. And I know that's got to be painful.
Yeah. You expect, which there are people who would say Federer is the greatest men's tennis player of all time.
Right.
They wouldn't be wrong.
It
to
wouldn't
make
be
that
wrong,
argument
but he
either.
has a losing record against his 2 big rivals, and that's kind of hard to fathom. How can he be the best when
Yeah.
his record is? Now, of course, he's playing them when he's 37, and they're 4 or 5 years younger too. But still, that's a factor. Serena lost in the finals. It's 3rd consecutive final that she's lost, and got destroyed actually in the finals.
Yeah, Simona Halep
Destroyed her.
Yeah, she did.
6-2, 6-2.
So, Halep is the number 7 player in the world, and after this Wimbledon, I mean, I know her ranking will go up.
Yeah, she plays better when she's number 7 than number 1. She was number 1 a year ago.
Yeah, it was a disaster.
She didn't handle the pressure at all.
Yeah, and it's curious to see if she can get back to that number 1 spot and do better this time
Well,
around.
she'll be probably 1 or 2 going into the U.S. Open.
Yeah, and that'll be a lot of, you mentioned the surface. The surface has a lot to do with a lot
It
of
does.
things, too. Some players are fantastic on clay, some are fantastic on grass, some fantastic hard court. And I think that's kind of the cool thing about the way the tennis works out, is that you got to claim each of those surfaces to be considered the top player.
That's correct.
And going back to the men, all 3 of them have proven that they're good on all the surfaces.
That's correct.
Which is, going back to the guys in the 80s, some of them weren't as good.
McEnroe was not very good on clay.
No, he wasn't. Yeah, he probably would just like to skip the French Open
That's
most
correct.
of those years. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag, brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week at 4 o'clock.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
This is WCDS Glasgow, ESPN Radio 1230, your total sports leader.